welcome to our webinar on evaluating eSign solutions. I know you must be busy today, so I'm really glad you decided to join us here. I'm Garrett LaCava, and I'll be moderating this session. So this webinar is going to last us 20 to 30 minutes, and it will include the roundtable discussion. During the webinar, your speakers will be muted, but make use of the chat function to ask us any questions that you'd like answered. If we don't get to it during the webinar, we'll reach out to you after via email with the answers to your questions. Now, this session is being recorded, and we'll also send you that recording once this webinar concludes. So for today, I'm going to begin by introducing our speakers for the day. We're going to go through a quick overview of Nitro and what we do here. We're then going to head into the roundtable discussion. And after this discussion, we'll give you a few minutes to ask those questions to our experts, and really be able to go through, hopefully, anything that might come to your mind after this overall webinar. Or perhaps something that comes up on your mind when the webinar concludes. Feel free to send us any questions via email as well. So the panel today, you have myself. I'm the VP of Sales for the Americas across all of our product lines. And I've always liked to work for companies where they're more driven by engineers than by accountants. So I'll let that rest where it is, but we have a very strong product set and a very strong product team that's constantly innovating and iterating on our product to bring the best product overall to market for our clients out there. On the panel today, we have a two-person panel. Ira Gohl is the head of governance, risk, and compliance at Nitro. And Ira is an information security strategist, and she's worked across many industries over the past 15 years of her career within GRC. We then also have Charlie Dayton, who's leading our eSign team for North America at Nitro. And he has over 8 years of experience in the digital identity and e-signature space. And he's also recently joined us from AWS. And Charlie's worked with institutions, both large and small, across essentially all sectors that are out there right now. So at Nitro, we're empowering remote workers to quickly edit, update, and sign important contracts and documents, right? Our mission here is to deliver a one-of-a-kind platform that accelerates document productivity for businesses around the world. Now, as with all great products, ours are designed with the help of our community, those on this webinar, and all of the clients we currently have, to make sure we're always providing a superior client experience, regardless of when you join. What you buy today is going to be better tomorrow. And that's how we've always run the company. That's how we always design our products, right? So right now for Nitro, we're proud to have 67% of the Fortune 500 as our customers. And that's more than 13,000 businesses across 157 countries. Our global footprint right now extends across 9 global hubs with, of course, multiples of hundreds of remote hybrid employees. And this here mentions on the enterprise side of the business, but we also focus on SMB and mid-market as well. And we'll get into that a little bit later in this presentation. So when it comes to, best way to put this is, when you choose an eSign software and you need to consider if the new solution is going to be accessible, you have to make sure it can be accessed from a variety of areas with all of our hybrid remote employees, right? You have to make sure it's secure, you have to make sure it integrates, and you have to make sure that your business users, end users, can fully adapt to this change in an expedited fashion. Our solutions are truly hybrid in that they're workplace friendly, they're accessible across any device, anywhere. And what makes us really unique is the analytics function, right? So within Nitro Productivity Platform, we have our built-out analytics that allows you to quantify and to qualify the value of the adoption of the Nitro solutions that are being used by your company. And internally, we've actually used analytics from Nitro's perspective to measure how it impacts our own sustainability goals and seeing some really interesting results that all of our clients also have access to. And the last thing on here, just to touch upon quickly, is our customer experience team. One of the finest in the industries. We have the ability to onboard thousands of clients per week at expedited fashion. And this team helps in that process for all those clients that we have across the board in making sure that that process is a seamless one. Now, as far as some of the logos I had mentioned before we get into the panel, and I'm purposely going through this at a relatively fast clip to make sure we can get to all your questions today. As part of the proof is sort of in the pudding of who we transact with. This is a list of a bunch of the clients who we work with here at Nitro. From a license quantity perspective, we have over 3 million licenses currently being used by all of our users globally, right? And many of these are Fortune 500 companies, but again, many of these are SMB, mid-market, as well as enterprise. So regardless of where you fit within that, span of size. We have a product that'll fit your environment that's actually priced specifically for your environment. So be sure if this is something of interest down the road that we get into that. But now that we're through that, what I really want to get into is the introduction of, the roundtable, and to start going through the questions and to really get into why you would choose a different eSign solution, or rather how to help you choose the right eSign solution. So we've pulled together a few commonly asked questions, and our customers tend to bring these up in early stage cycle or even later in the stage cycle when we're going through our solutions. But with that, let me head into the first question here. And I'm gonna turn this over to our panel, which is again consists of Yura and of Charlie, and we're gonna walk through these items. So first question I have right now is around what is the legality of a digitally signed document? And Charlie, I'll leave that one to you.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett. That's of course a fundamental question, when it comes to electronic signatures. What is the legal value of a document that is signed using electronic signatures? And to answer this, what we'll do is we'll first look at the regulations and what they say, and then how NitroSign complies to those regulations, so how we fill in those requirements. And the legality of an electronic signature, and then thus of a digitally signed document, is determined by different regulations in different parts of the world. Now, we can provide our customers, and we do, as well as our prospects, with a legal compliance assessment, which was written by the e-signature experts at DLA Piper. And this regards how NitroSign complies with digital signature regulations in different geographies, such as the USA, the European Union, Switzerland, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that we don't comply with regulations in other geographies. What we simply did with DLA is we focused our legal assessment on those countries with the most stringent electronic signature laws. Now, for the purposes of this roundtable, we'll be focusing on US regulations with regard to digital signature legality, because that's where most of the attendees calling in today come from. And when it comes to the US, there's a two-tier structure of laws. So on the federal level, digital signatures are governed by a law called eSign, easy enough to remember. And on the state level, they're governed by a law called UETA, U-E-T-A. And while there are some important nuances between these two, they largely agree on the same principles when it comes to the legality of an electronic signature. If you'd like to know the exact details in how these two laws sort of differ and what the nuances are, we again refer to the DLA Piper Legal Compliance Assessment, which we'll send to all of you for a very comprehensive overview and the nitty-gritty details of everything. Now, what do these two regulations say regarding electronic signatures? Are they legal? And the resounding answer is yes. Electronic signatures are valid in all US states and have the same legal value as a handwritten signature. Both eSign and UETA define an electronic signature, because that's the next question then. Okay, but what is an electronic signature, or what does it constitute? They define it as any sound, symbol, or process attached to or logically associated with a record and adopted by a person with the intent to sign the record. Now, how does NitroSign comply with those requirements? Let's go through a typical signing process and explain how we adhere to the eSign and the UETA requirements. So with NSP or with NitroSign, a signer will receive an email or notification through any other channel. That's also possible, depending on how NitroSign was set up. But typically, we send notifications to the signer via email. And in that email, he will be asked to sign a particular document by clicking on a button, which will open their browser-based signing screen. Now, independent of whether they open that screen on their smartphone, tablet, or laptop or desktop, we will always make sure that this screen provides a user interface where the to-be-signed documents are displayed in a clearly legible form. So depending on the screen real estate we have available, we'll re-optimize and reconfigure the buttons to make sure that everything is nice and legible and that the signer can read what he is about to sign. The signer can then either refuse to sign, or they have to scroll through the entire document before starting the signing process. And before starting that process, the signer has to agree that they've read all the documents, that they agree with the eSign consent, and that they agree with some other policies which you, our customer, can configure, typically a privacy policy and a cookie policy, before they can click the Start Signing button. Now, once they click the Start Signing button, depending on the signing method, the signing wizard will open, which will sort of guide them through that process. And they're required during that process to provide additional information, so further confirming both their intent their willingness to sign, as well as validating their identity. They are in fact who they claim to be, and more importantly, who actually needs to sign. And in doing that, or when they do that, we create their electronic signature on the electronic document, whereby Nitra Sign ensures that all the relevant data pertaining to this signature is cryptographically sealed inside the signed document, thus creating what we call a self-contained signature. So all the information you need to validate your signature, your electronic signature, is inside the document that's actually signed. So if we then review the UETA and the eSign requirements for a legally valid electronic signature, and we apply how Nitra Sign complies with this, we conclude that 1, yes, the signer is guided through a process to create their electronic signature. 2, yes, the electronic signature is cryptographically sealed in the signed document, so there's logical association with the record. And 3, yes, the signer's intent to sign is very clearly captured and safeguarded. So in conclusion, an electronic signature that complies with those requirements cannot be denied legal effect, validity, or enforceability just because it's in electronic form. So documents that were signed digitally with Nitra Sign have legal validity. Now, having said that, and this will bring us to the next question on our panel, another important question is, what if that legal validity is challenged? And that's where existing US common law comes in. Same story applies as with wet ink signatures, and Ira will give a more comprehensive explanation of what sort of evidentiary value we provide in that case.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. And just for the group real quick, because I know a few people maybe just dialed in without actually seeing the questions. The second question is, if a signee tries to dispute their digital signature, what evidentiary value can I provide to counter this dispute? Ira.
Yeah, thank you so much, Garrett. Thank you, Charlie, for great introduction here and making my life easier to answer this question or add on to what you said. So when we talk about the evidentiary value of the signature, essentially they are also defined in the regulations we are touching upon. So in Americas, we are touching upon eSign and UETA. So they define why and how the e-signature can be evidence in the court in case it has to be presented. That's essentially what the essence of this question is. So when the signature is the necessary metadata of the signature is captured, and it's as you are signing is put in the document itself, it captures those significant data points that are there. So that's one part of it. Second part of it here is when we talk about audit trails. So when the document is created, who is the signature is sent to, or the document is sent to for signature, that is also trailed as the activity history on what's happening with the document as well. So not only the signature itself is self-contained, it contains pertinent data that, in accordance with the regulations that you're working with, is captured with the signature. You also can share that audit trail, that activity history, and the changes as the document is being signed in case of a dispute that can be shared in the court. And again, I will refer to the DLA Piper legal assessment on the e-signature, because they also highlight that there are all the necessary information that's available, or the steps Nitra Sign is taking to ensure that this is a valid legal signature.
Thank you, Ira. And we know when you're looking at solutions, it's almost a buyer beware type of scenario when you choose a vendor. But for the third question, which security protocols are critical in eSign solutions?
So one of the biggest questions, so this is a very broad question, Garrett, but I will break it down and try to simplify it a little bit to share with the audience here, is there are two parts of it. One is the security protocols from the e-signature standpoint, as we were talking about the legality or the evidentiary value of the signature in case of a dispute. So there are that part of it. And then there are general product security protocols that we as a product company has to incorporate to ensure that the product itself doesn't compromise the documents that are being signed in general, in a broader sense. So touching upon the first point we are looking here is that we have, when we send the documents, or when somebody sends the document to a person to sign, there are additional checks and balances made, like verification of the email or whatever mechanism the document is being sent to, SMS, OTPs, or one-time passwords, or MFA if you can log in, or if you have an account into the product and things like that. So that's part of the e-signature, that making sure that the right person is signing the document. And so that's some sort of security protocols there, which are again highlighted in the DLA Piper legal assessment. The second part in general refers to the general security measures Nitro as a company takes while putting developing the product to ensure the product is secure in general, in a broader sense. So highlighting some of those is NitroSign is ISO 27001 certified, so that highlights the level of commitment that we have ensuring the security and the protocols we use. So encryption is big one. So since we are cloud-based, we are HTTPS. So what protocols of encryption we use, are they secure, are they up to date? Where the data is stored, where is that secure? So NitroSign, we are data processors, so we expect our clients, or we recommend our clients not to use our product as a data store where they keep adding the documents. We want to make sure that they use it as a product for e-signature and download the documents once they're done. So the security is at their level if they have a concern about the security of the product itself from a data storage perspective. And then the general other security measures, network, encryption, access, single sign-on, general security protocols. And we can have that further discussion if need be, if you have further questions. So just considering the time, happy to answer more.
All right, thank you. And so we all know that tech stacks are ever increasing in organizations right now. And the next question up for Charlie is around what should somebody look for when they're trying to see if an eSign solution can actually implement into their environment?
Yeah, thanks, Garrett. This is a question that obviously gets asked quite a bit. And it's a tough one to answer because there's a lot of considerations that go into choosing the optimal eSign solution, and they tend to differ from customer to customers. Depending on their needs, of course, considerations will be slightly different. But what we'll try and do is summarize what we think are the 5 most important takeaways when choosing your optimal eSign solution. And we'll try and tie some customer feedback, some customer experience into that to make some things a bit more concrete for you. And the first one I want to touch upon, and we actually touched upon it already during our first question, but it's legal compliance. Because again, that's where everything starts and ends. What is the legal value of my digital signature, and can my eSign solution provide that legal value to me? And on top of that, as Ira highlighted, can it also provide the evidentiary value if and when there is ever a dispute? So you should make sure that your eSign solution is compliant to the regulations governing electronic signature usage in the markets you operate. But you also want them to provide strong evidentiary value. But this shouldn't be limited to the geographies in which your organization is located. Ideally, this should extend to the countries where your signer is located. And I'll give a concrete example of one of our customers who's a specialized law firm who manages shareholder documents, etc., and those types of meetings and contractuals for their customers. And they often have contracts that need to be signed by the board of directors of large multinational corporations. And those directors may be located at different periods of the year in different parts of the world. They may hold different nationalities, and so they may have different electronic signature laws that are applicable to them. And this law firm chose to work with NitroSign for precisely this reason, because we provide a global reach on the one hand, but our legal and compliance sort of perspective is that we understand that there's no silver bullet towards compliance, and that we work with our customer to understand their use case and identify with the customer where and how we need to comply for each individual use case. So that's number 1, legal compliance. Number 2, which we'd like to highlight, is branding. So typically the electronic signature process is a component of a larger customer journey. So we believe that it's very important to ensure that your eSign solution is entirely white labelable, that you can adapt everything towards your own corporate branding, so that the end user, the signer, never feels he's leaving the familiar customer journey to sign a contract through third-party eSign software somewhere else. If the eSign solution heavily emphasizes their own brand name, we've heard feedback from our customers and customers coming towards us that if the corporate identity of someone else is very heavily emphasized in the signing process that they are having with their customer, that it leads to confusion for that customer, for that signer, and it just feels like a disjointed overall customer journey. So legal compliance, branding. Number 3, a variety of signing methods. So we've seen that for every use case, what do we mean by that? We've seen for every use case, for every document, and for every signer, there can be a different optimal signing method, which in that use case or in that instance provides the best combination of evidentiary value, of ease of use, of availability, maybe even of cost. And so we feel that your eSign solution should not just offer a one-size-fits-all signing method, but should offer a variety of signing methods whereby you, the customer, can make an informed decision on which signing method is best put forward, where and when. And another example I'll give there is with one of our customers in the financial services industry, who's a large credit card provider, who implemented NitroSign to ensure that customers could acquire a credit card through a self-service online portal. And depending on the risk profile that they determined for each new customer, they ask that new customer to sign with either a signing method that emphasizes strong identification, strong evidentiary value more of that signer, or if the risk profile of the signer is quite mellow, then they emphasize a signing method which has is very easy to use, and maybe slightly less emphasizes that evidentiary value and that strong identification. So in other words, the variety of signing methods for them means that they can take a risk-based approach when it comes to digital signing. Then number 4, we'd say our integration and configuration. So as we previously mentioned, each customer has unique requirements related to their contract signing workflows. And for that reason, we've seen that a one-size-fits-all offering, when it comes to those workflows doesn't work for most customers. So it doesn't, in fact, fit all. Customers need to be able to integrate their signing workflow and expertise within their existing applications and portals, and they can ensure in that way that they completely capitalize on the automation that digital signing can provide. And then configurability, on the other hand, what do we mean by that? We mean the ability to add or subtract elements from the eSign workflow where necessary. And we believe that no two contract streams are alike, and so our customers should be able to configure which eSign workflow they use and which features are not relevant for them. And whether that's enabling or disabling the option for the signer to reject a document or offering different signing methods for different document flows, the customer, we feel, should be in control. And then finally, and I'll conclude with this, when choosing your eSign solution, also look at the subscription model and make sure that the subscription model awards successful adoption and successful expansion of your eSign solution within the organization. It should be rewarded, it shouldn't be punished. So a higher commitment or a higher volume of a digital signature should result, as it does with us, in a lower cost per signature. That's very much what we believe. But what's even more important is that you shouldn't be penalized when you overconsume a certain volume of signatures. When you commit to a certain model, but then overconsume because it's been a successful rollout and the adoption of the solution was much higher than you anticipate, you shouldn't be penalized for that. You should still pay the same fee per signature when you consume outside of your committed bundle. And then finally, you should also make sure that when you're sending out signature requests, does that incur a cost, or is the cost only incurred towards the eSign solution, that is, once the signature is successfully created? Because otherwise you'll often have times where you send out documents for a signature, and how often does it happen that no one responds or no one replies, or a deal falls through, or you need to adjust something in the contract while you're negotiating it, and so that signing flow remains unfinished because not everyone is signed. If you're always on the hook for that, then those costs tend to add up very quickly. So in summary, legal compliance, branding, variety of signing methods, integration and configuration, and subscription model. Those are key criteria, we'd say, when choosing your optimal signing method or signing solution, sorry.
All right, thank you, Charlie. And that keeps us right on time here. So just 5 minutes left to go. We're going to keep this to the half-hour mark. And nice work, team, on keeping us in the guidelines of what we're working with here. So for this session, we have a few minutes left. I want to make sure if there's any questions out there that you input them within the chat, and we'll get to them. If we don't get to them, we'll of course follow up with you via email. And let me just pause a second and see if there's anything coming in, and then I'll jump into a few questions that we may have. So throw them in there in the chat. All right. So one other one I want to make sure we got to was this question around where's your data hosted? And so Ira or Charlie, I'll leave that to you.
So with eSign, we offer several locations around the world. So we have data centers or access to data centers in US or in Europe or in Australia that the customer or you can pick according to your needs. Because even if you're a US-based company or Canada-based company or a Mexico-based company, you have a wider audience in Europe that you're doing business with, you would want to host your systems in Europe, for example. So it's up to you. You have a choice to pick one or of the several data centers we offer.
All right, thank you. And one question here, just for broader guidance, is just around integrations with third party for Nitro solutions. Can we touch upon that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So what we've seen with our customers is that there's typically two ways in which they use our eSign solution. The first way is the standalone portal, which offers a user interface to the customer where their users can manually prepare and send documents for signature. And when I say manually, I mean those users will be doing some manipulations through point and click and drag and drop and that type of thing. And the benefit of an eSign portal is, of course, that it doesn't require any integration with existing customer solutions. You know, users can use SSO to log in and immediately start preparing documents for signature. The downside is, of course, you only capture part of the automation when using digital signatures and when automating your digital contract flow. So if you have a high volume of document streams where you want to automatically send out the right document for signature to the right signer, asking for the right signing method, then you may want to limit the number of manual manipulations that are required by your coworkers. And then you want to be looking at such an integration. And that's where our API comes in. And we would advise our customers in such cases to integrate our API. And what we do is we offer a well-documented open REST API, which can be integrated with basically any third-party solution that is using modern technology, and so that can integrate with open APIs. And our services team is always happy to assist with such an integration, and we can provide guidance and support on how best to integrate the eSign API. I'd say we've done this for the majority of our customers that are using the integrated API. So we can work with either your in-house team to make that integration a success, or any third-party integrator you prefer to work with. So that's a matter of having a conversation, looking at the requirements, and then making sure that we set up a successful integration.
All right, thanks, Charlie. So I'm having a little bit of trouble here seeing the Q&A box right now, but let me not let that slow us down. There's a couple of the questions that come to mind for me. The first one I just want to throw out there is, when it comes to onboarding clients, what's that timeline look like for Charlie or Ira?
Charlie, go ahead.
When you're a portal user, so you're just using the out-of-the-box user interface, deployment takes, depending on how quickly you can give us sort of your information regarding how you want the portal set up and branded, takes 1 to 2 days. So you can immediately get started. It's a matter of setting up the single sign-on. It's a matter of rebranding and reconfiguring the portal to your needs, activating and deactivating some features, making sure you have the right signing methods. We provide you with a lot of user documentation and user video material so you can educate the teams that will be using the solution. When it comes to an API integration, it depends sort of on the complexity of that integration. So when it's a very deep integration with multiple third-party applications, then of course it can take anywhere to 15 to 30 days. But for typical API integrations, we see that it usually takes anywhere between 5 to 10 days of integration works before we have the viable product that can be rolled out towards all the different users.
Fantastic. And knowing we are just at time, I know it's flown by here. First, just want to say, Charlie and Ira, thank you for joining the panel today. Thank you to all those who have dialed into us today. If there's any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Use our LinkedIn profiles to ask questions. Reach out to us through the website. We'd be happy to answer anything for you. And with that, again, thank you so much for your time today. Look for the follow-ups to come via email. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.